Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Wrenching Podcast. I always have the deepest thoughts when I'm working night shift. The past couple days, I've kind of ran out of music to listen to, podcasts, and so right now, I'm just sitting here in silence and letting my mind wander. And one of the main things on my mind was unforgiveness, and so I thought, what a perfect topic to talk about tonight. So let's get right into it. Unforgiveness. What does that look like? What does that sound like? Where does it come from? So surface level, it sounds really basic. It sounds just like, oh yeah, just don't worry about it. It's okay. Somebody does something to you, you're just like, all right, yeah, just don't worry about it. It's fine. Somebody came and apologized to you. Okay, yeah, I guess it's fine now. But what about the people that don't come and apologize? What about the person that cut you off in traffic and then once you caught up to them, they're screaming at you through their window, and then you go home and you're in a bad mood from that interaction. And then maybe for a couple days you carry it on your head. Hey, you go talk to people. Oh, I ran into this person. They cut me off, this, that, and the other. Screw that person. And then life goes on, right? Eventually, we forget about those things. But what does that do to ourselves? Recently, I've found somebody online that is talking about a lot of the brain and the neuroscience and how our mind doesn't understand the difference between when we talk badly about somebody else and ourselves. The mind only thinks that something negative is us. Whether it's towards somebody else or us, the mind only understands that it is towards ourselves. And there's a saying that goes something like, unforgiveness is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die. So now these two theories go hand in hand, right? The mind doesn't understand that you're talking about somebody else or yourself, and then you drinking poison, hoping that the other person dies. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they go together. Surface level, again, in those moments where you're just like, okay, we'll curse this person and then carry on with my day. Your mind will hold that as if you did something, and it might not show very much, but it does mess with your character. You will be faster to judge. You will be more prone to do it again later. It almost feels good to let out your anger than on others, and then you will be the one that needs the forgiveness. So how do we fix that and move on from that? The Bible says that the tongue carries life and death. And Jesus said not to curse one another, but to love one another. And again, going back to the mind doesn't understand the difference between when you are cursing somebody else or cursing yourself. So if Jesus told us to not curse one another and love one another, what you're doing is when you're cursing somebody else, you're actually really just hurting yourself more. And then again, you carry that on, changes your character and whatever. Unforgiveness is actually easy. It's really just empathy. When you can understand that sometimes other people can't control their emotions, you allow that to then control your emotions, and then the cycle starts of, again, that really unhealthy character building. Sometimes it's hard when somebody really did something that hurt us, something traumatizing. That's a lot deeper. That's a lot harder to let go of, because then you're dealing with inner child therapy. Let's use the example of maybe you had an abusive parent. As an adult, it is easy to look back at your childhood and say, I was mistreated by a parent, by an adult, by a figure of authority, a teacher, or whatever, and they were wrong for that. But who says they knew better? Who's to say that they knew what they were doing when they crossed a line that maybe they shouldn't have? Again, I think the bigger thing to understand is, why did that person think it was okay to treat you that way? And it was because maybe at one point they went through it themselves, and that's the best way they were able to deal with it, was to just pass it on. So at one point, maybe they were offended by another adult, another person in authority. And so for them, it just made sense to then treat you in that same manner for how they were treated when they went through that similar situation. It's really hard to do this in the moment. Eventually, after enough practice, you will be a lot better at doing it. But learning to control your emotions in those moments will change the trajectory of how you will treat people in the future. And just because somebody treats you a certain way doesn't mean that you should allow it. You can forgive and then move on, keep that person distant. You have the choice to let go of that anger. You have the choice of letting go of that moment. But sometimes it feels better not to, because then it feels like we are in control and we have the power to say, this is what makes me feel better. And as people, we want that. This person treated me such and such way. I'm not letting that person get away with this. I'm going to be mad at them. That'll show them. But that doesn't fix anything. That just later again carries on into the way you will later treat other people. The empathy that I mentioned is understanding that you don't understand what that person has gone through. You don't understand the pain that that person is suffering. The poison that that person keeps drinking, trying to get it to hurt the other person, that hurt them. The trauma that they may have had to live at one point. We don't understand what somebody else is going through. What might be an easy situation for you to let go of right now might be a really tough situation for somebody else to let go of. It builds the same roots as something that may be harder for you to let go of. Some people are weaker with their emotions. And so a small thing might affect them a lot more than maybe it'll affect you. Like again, for example, maybe I cut somebody off and then they came up to my window, started yelling at me. It's like, that doesn't bother me so much. I'm just like, either I need to move over, you are in my way, or I'm sorry I didn't see you. But again, they came at me with anger and with an emotion that they couldn't handle. Or it happened to me. They cut me off. I'm really good at just being like, all right, dude, if you needed to get in there that badly, then go ahead. Where again, as somebody else might not look at it that way. They may just completely go fight or flight and go straight to fight instead of just saying, let it go, it doesn't matter. Like, I may not ever see this person ever again. So why hold on to that anger? Then there's the people that have trauma, and then through that trauma build an anger that then they let out on almost everybody. They have to now be defensive, especially if the trauma happened more as a child, where they felt like they had to learn to fight or flight. If the trauma developed as a child, then they grew up to be a lot more defensive, and so therefore, of course, they're going to be more defensive, more aggressive. Anything they say, any way they act, anything they do to almost release that emotion is going to be a lot more impactful. But again, you never understand what the other person has gone through or is going through. Maybe they're not going through anything right now. Maybe they were good a second ago, but you made a comment and it brought them back to something that happened to them as a child, and now they let something out on you, and now that turned you around as well. And again, in the moment, it's hard to pick it up, but you have to have almost the empathy to be like, maybe I triggered something right now that brought back some pain from their past that led them to respond like that. That's not what I was trying to do. I thought I was being funny. I thought I was making a joke. I thought we would find humor out of it. But what you did was you pulled something out of them that maybe they don't even understand they're dealing with still. And then on top of that, you want to be mad at this person, and maybe you're going to treat this person differently because now they made you upset. And so now that's more thrown on them, on top of that emotion that was buried down and was painful to them. And so we have to have that empathy to say, I'm sorry that life has treated this person so badly that they have to respond like this, that they've had so much pain in their life that they are now bitter, that this was their best way to react to this situation. Does that mean that their response was okay? Does that mean that the way that they behaved is allowable? Of course not. Some people just have so much hurt built up that that's the only thing they know how to do. There's a saying, hurt people hurt people. So people that are hurt, all they know how to do is hurt other people. That is not fair for the people around them, but that is just the only thing they know. So how do we deal with these people? Depends on the situation. If it is a parent, I mean, you have to love them and accept that for who they are, but as well, it's like, if you eventually just have to keep a distance, you grow up and you have to keep that distance, then so be it. I mean, some people just don't want to change. It is not your job to change them and help them work through that pain and that trauma, but it is your job to forgive them, because you don't know, again, you don't understand what they went through, and you don't understand why they feel the need to be how they are. That is just the body's reaction. That is just the mind's reaction to any pain or trauma, or again, maybe unforgiveness that they carry. And so you don't want to carry that unforgiveness, because then you're going to be that person that mistreats other people. And is that really what you want? I mean, I guess if you do, then go ahead. But if you want to be attractive to people in a way that you want people to almost be comfortable around you, you can't have unforgiveness. Because any moment that somebody accidentally triggers something, you're going to let out an emotion on them that's going to make you repulsive. And again, having the ability to forgive is just having enough empathy to understand, I don't know what this person has gone through, I don't know what they've been through, or maybe you do understand, and now you have to put the pieces together and say, that's why this person is so broken. That's why this person is like this, because they are just so broken. They feel like the only way to deal with this is to treat me harshly or treat others harshly. I work in construction. I deal with all kinds of people, angry, happy, completely unstable. And what I have found is that a lot of people are more attracted to come to me and ask me for things, because I don't hold anger when they make a mistake. If you're listening to this, more than likely you want to be better. For those who don't care to be better, I mean, they're just going to be as they are. People here almost treat each other poorly, but again, it's like, it's the environment. But why do I have a pull? Why do people come to me when they need something? And it is because, again, it's like, I'm not harsh like that. And even if somebody is harsh with me, I brush it off. And then later, again, they come back to me with a different emotion. They come back to me and know that I am not hard to deal with, and they don't have to act like that with me. Not that I let myself get walked on either. You can't do that. You forgive. And if somebody keeps coming at you and triggering you, you have to keep that person at a distance. You have to manage how you deal with those people, because you can't forgive somebody and then go back and then allow them to keep hurting you. Eventually you stand up and you say something that isn't, again, going to cause more pain to that person. Because then what that's going to do is that's going to cause a really unhealthy relationship between the two of you. If you are somebody that constantly makes mistakes and then people lose their patience with you, that's something that really you have to work on. It's hard to expect a good reaction from somebody else when you keep making mistakes. But even still, don't allow the disrespect. Eventually you have to stand up and say, hey, this is the best that I'm doing. Hey, I'm trying the best that I can. Don't turn around and curse that person, because again, your emotion is now altered and almost negative. Forgiving is understanding the situation and accepting it for what it is. I made a mistake. They may have been a little bit harsh. They didn't need to be that harsh. I will try my best to correct it. Or I did nothing and this person just chose to let out their emotions on me. In relationships between a man and a woman, it's really common that the relationships end up kind of nasty and hurt from both sides and not healthy. And so I recently went through a breakup and it was really healthy, but everybody from the outside is treating it like it was really painful. The painful thing was that had to change and that had to end, and that season came to an end. But it wasn't painful. The pain was just letting go of the other person. But usually you think that a relationship ends, it's a lot of fighting, a lot of arguing, a lot of not being able to meet and agree on something, cheating or lying or whatever. And so the relationship ends really, really negative, really unhealthy. Then you run into that ex, you run into that person, and it's like everything just kind of piles up at once, and you almost get like a rush of like adrenaline. And it's almost like, again, a fight or flight moment that your body goes into. You almost instantly want to hate that person. Relationships like that are hard. But again, you have to find a way. You have to figure out what it is that's causing you to trigger you like that, and realize that at the end of the day, there were two of you involved in the relationship. Either one or the other made a mistake that ultimately ended it, but there were probably mistakes that both of you made. Whether you like it or not, that's just the way relationships work. It's pain on both sides. You can't be perfect and then the other person just come at you with nothing. There are the really abusive ones, but we're not talking about those. Those deserve a different category themselves. That's abusive. But ending an unhealthy relationship, I think those are hard to let go of, because there's just so many things that maybe you would like to have fixed, or maybe you would have liked to have been better. And so it's hard to move on from those moments. There's a lot more emotion built up and entangled with those relationships, with those people. But again, eventually you have to move forward. You can't keep drinking that poison, because the only thing it's doing is it's hurting you. You will carry that pain into the next relationship and then treat the next person as if it was the last person. And that is not fair to the future relationships that you get into. And so if you're finding yourself in a constant cycle of not being able to hold a relationship, or you know somebody that can't hold a relationship, it's not that you're running into the wrong people. It's that more than likely you are carrying hurt from the past relationship into your new one. You do need time to let go of the past relationship to get into the next one. And if you're just jumping from relationship to relationship, that's why you're having troubles with your new relationships, or you're finding the same problems with a different person, because you are bringing that problem to the table more than likely. And again, just because you forgive doesn't mean you need to go back to that relationship. Just because you have moved on and let go of that pain doesn't mean you need to go back to that person or run back to that person. You can keep your distance. And especially if you know that person's going to hurt you again, definitely keep your distance. Again, if it's a parent, if it's an authority, you have to keep a healthy distance. You should know how to balance that. Because you can't allow yourself to keep putting your hand on the hot stove. You might have to get close, but that doesn't mean keep putting your hand on the hot stove. But again, if you never move forward, if you never let go of that pain, you're going to keep drinking that poison, and then that pain is going to start leaking to other people, leaking into next relationships, leaking into other parts of your life. And again, unforgiveness is easy. It's just understanding that the person that hurt you has gone through something so traumatic, so painful, that they feel the need to have to treat you that way. And you need to understand that that person doesn't know how to deal with that emotion, and almost just feel bad for them. Somebody grew up with abusive parents. That's the only thing they know in a relationship. So now they treat every relationship like they watched their parents growing up, or like their parents treated them growing up. That sucks for that person. And to keep the cycle going, again, if they don't understand it and if they can't let that go, you should feel bad, because they will suffer with that emotion until they learn how to work through it. See, I don't like therapy. I don't like therapy because therapy makes you really just I feel like therapy doesn't even help you move through those emotions. It just almost reminds you more. And then, yes, you have suggestions given on how to work through them, but at the end of the day, you are revisiting that pain over and over. Somebody's building out a portfolio of all your flaws and then bringing them back to you and telling you, this is why you're dealing with that. And oh, remember how you said you had let go of that? No, you haven't yet. Well, I thought I did. No, you haven't. That's why you are still dealing with this, that, and the other. Okay, well, I guess I haven't let that go. Sometimes that's true. But again, sometimes the reminder of a trauma hurts a lot more than what happened in the moment. Sometimes we create these scenarios in our head that are a lot worse until we face a situation and realize it wasn't that bad. It's the same thing with having to deal with traumas or hurt or pain that may have been caused from other people, or maybe we do it to ourselves. I'm really hard on myself. With day trading, for example, I take a loss, I beat myself up for it, And then the rest of the week, I could have a really bad week because I didn't let go of that loss. I carried that pain and that loss into the next trading session. And I may have missed out on a good trade because I didn't let go of the loss from yesterday. Or I get into another bad trade because now I'm thinking that I just suck. And again, I'm carrying the pain from the last trade into the next one. And again, no different than what I just said about relationships. Your last partner may have hurt you. You didn't let that go. Now you're carrying that into the next relationship. You're seeing the same problems and you think it's just the people you meet. It's not necessarily just the people you meet. The problem might be within you that you haven't worked yet. This person, or every person that I meet, or every relationship I get in, I'm cheated on. Or every person that I get in a relationship with is really toxic. Maybe the people that you're meeting aren't all toxic. Maybe they're not all cheaters. But maybe it's something you're bringing to the table that's making them react in that certain way. Not to say that you cannot meet similar people that will treat you the same way, because you definitely will. But if you have a recurring theme with somebody new or a new situation, then again, you have to dig deeper within yourself and say, maybe I'm doing this to myself. I work a lot, and so therefore I don't give maybe a relationship as much time as I should. So what does that look like? In turn, they are going to then find that time with somebody else. I have to eventually accept and be like, okay, either I take a step back away from all the work that I want to do, because it's always been that for me, and give the time into the relationship, everything will be fine. I'll be a lot more hands-on in the relationship, and they won't have to go find somebody else to get that time with. But I'm choosing to pick work over the person more. That's a me problem now, not the other person. Somebody else might commit, but if they aren't willing, or eventually they might not be willing to continue waiting for me to show up. That is not a problem on everybody I meet. That is a problem that I have to work on myself. That is a balance that I do not figure out, or that I don't want to figure out. A balance that I don't want to fix. Every person that I meet is toxic. Well, maybe you have these emotions, or maybe you have these responses, or maybe you have this characteristic of you come off really aggressive, really immature, and so anybody you deal with treats you with that same response. And if you think, well, I've worked through these things, okay, then something is still not working. Something is still not fixed. Either you are still choosing poor people, or you haven't fixed the problem enough within yourself to get rid of this. But again, that character development within yourself is because at one point you had some kind of pain. At one point, somebody did introduce you to this emotion that you now have to almost fight, get into that fight mode every time something is triggered. I don't like the way you dress. Can you not dress that way? Well, every person that I meet is toxic because they try and control the way that I dress. Maybe the way you dress is not okay. Maybe the person that you are with doesn't like that you dress that certain way. I know that I don't like women that dress provocatively. I mean, it's just unnecessary. You can look good and you can look modest without flaunting. Again, maybe at one point, maybe somebody made you insecure, and so therefore you feel like you have to dress or look a certain way because that gets you a little bit more approval. But the approval that you get doesn't fix the fact that at one point somebody hurt you to the point that made you uncomfortable with yourself. You have to let go of when that pain first came in to then be able to fix that. And then remind yourself that you have let go of that and that you have to change that character that comes out every time that's brought up again. See, at work, I almost see this as it develops. Management gets after an employee, the employee gets upset. Well, the employee doesn't understand that management still has management above them. And then that management has management above them. Until eventually it comes down to the customer. The customer doesn't like the way that the product is delivered or the result of whatever is given. And so then that hurts business. The employee doesn't think of it that way. The employee just thinks of it as, I just had a small mistake. I messed up at my job and I am getting my ass chewed for this. Management gets it maybe 10 times worse because they are supposed to watch and make sure that anybody under them doesn't make those errors. Because when they have to report those errors, it is under them still. They have to report that back to somebody else. And then that other person might not be so easy on, again, this manager. To whoever this manager responds to might not be as easy as they are to the manager. Again, until it trickles back to the person that came and asked for the product to begin with, or the service. And so it's easy as an employee to just be like, yeah, management just sucks. Sometimes it does. But a lot of times they are just somewhere in the ladder. They have a bigger responsibility to hold. So yeah, they have to come after you for certain mistakes or behaviors or mistakes made. It's easy to let go of that because in the moment, if you're like, okay, I made this mistake, I can't be doing this, this hurts business in general, I can't be making this mistake. Okay, now it doesn't matter how badly you got your ass chewed, you can accept, I made a mistake, I need to fix it. I know that I need to be on top of it myself. That is something that as long as I don't do again, everything will be fine. And then that can carry on different levels of the ladder, all the way up. But if you always just blame it on management and say, well, management is just rude, or management just sucks, and you don't fix the problem, you're still a problem. You're still the problem. Because the product or service that the customer is getting at the end of the day doesn't look good. That's no different than dealing with just people and relationships and emotions. Your action delivered something to this person that created this response that came back to you as feedback. And again, you either accept it and say, I did good, this person just didn't like it, or I did not do good, and I can do better. But you have to be very good at not putting yourself above other people and knowing when you made a mistake. Because if you didn't make a mistake, you can easily brush it off and be like, I didn't do anything. But if you did make a mistake and you brush it off, that's why you keep having this cycle. Again, no different than relationships. At the end of the day, the different examples that I gave all work together at the end of the day because they all lead to an outcome. Whether it's somebody you'll never see again, somebody that you're in a relationship with, or somebody that is just a work relationship. Again, a parent relationship is a little bit harder because you have to have some type of respect for a parent. And sometimes we can't help them because they might not take it from us as their children. They might have to take it from somebody else outside, but we may know better. Unforgiveness for trauma is a lot deeper because trauma is almost built into your DNA. It is something that happened to you that was so traumatic that really caused a big change within you. Trauma is spiritual. Trauma is not the flesh and blood. Trauma is the battles in spiritual places that we cannot see. Trauma introduced a demon into your life, and that takes a different type of work. It is almost like an authority that you are allowing in your life. And that's why the Bible says that we are given authority over all things. Because until you choose to let that go, and until you say, you are no longer to mess with me in my life, trauma is going to stay there. And sometimes it is so hard to work through that, depending on, again, how strong of a person you are emotionally and how bad the trauma was. Think of trauma more as a broken bone, rather than just a problem that you had with somebody, which would be more like a small paper cut. Once it heals, you almost don't even see a scar from it. But for trauma, it takes almost like building a cast around that broken bone. It takes a lot more protection. It takes a lot more structure to hold it together. And so if you break a bone and never take the cast off, eventually the cast is no longer helping you. It is now bringing in new problems. It is bringing in unhealthy, maybe infections. Eventually you have to get that cast taken off. And even still, maybe that broken bone might still have pain. I broke my thumb many years ago. And sometimes if I pick up something wrong, it'll still bring back a little bit of pain. I can shake it off and just be like, that's fine. That's just because at one point I broke my thumb. But if I wore the cast on my thumb forever, I would be a lot more restricted. And it probably would have caused something else within my thumb that would have led to more pain. But I get cuts and scratches all the time. Some of them are worse than others. Again, some problems are bigger than others. But they don't cause any pain. I could scratch myself today, and then by next week, it'll be gone. I don't need a cast for a small cut. But also, I can't use a bandage on a broken bone. But understand that sometimes people have so much trauma that they think they need a cast for every small cut, every small problem that they encounter. And then there's the people that try to put a bandage on a broken bone and then it never heals. Both situations have similar outcomes. One doesn't let go of the cast, and then the other one overdoes it by putting a cast. And sometimes you have to dig deeper. Okay, you don't need an x-ray for a small paper cut, but you do need an x-ray if you broke a bone. If you don't get the x-ray, you're not going to be able to diagnose it properly and then heal it properly. You don't need to go to your therapist and talk to your therapist about how badly somebody made you upset because they cut you off. You can easily just let that go. I don't know what that person's going through today. They might have a bad day. They might be in a hurry. They might have an emergency, and I might have just been in the way. Let it go. You don't need to go to therapy for that. But you might need to go to therapy if you just got out of a really abusive relationship, grew up in an abusive household. Maybe you were just bullied growing up, and so you feel belittled, and now you have this need to almost stand up for yourself more than what you need to. But when you endure so much pain, you may think that you need a cast, you need an x-ray, you need extra care for every single little problem that you encounter, when that's not the case. Sometimes a simple, I understand that person going through a rough time, doesn't fix that deeper trauma. Sometimes it takes going back to that younger self that was hurt and having God walk you through that on how to let that go. But unless you go that deep, again, if you understand that you are the problem, that you have a problem that needs worked on, those deeper traumas might not get fixed. And again, you'll carry those into different parts of your life. It might not be, a relationship may have hurt you, but you're going to carry that hurt into business later, or into your career, or into friendships, because then you can't trust, or whatever it may look like. And without guidance, sometimes that's really hard. Again, if you're listening to this episode, more than likely you're trying to figure out if you have these problems and how to make them better, and you're looking to be better. But some people don't want to let go of that. Some people want to stay angry and bitter because they feel like they need to hold on to that because they don't want to get taken advantage of again. They don't want to get hurt again by somebody else. They won't take that cast off because they feel like if they take that cast off, that bone's still going to be broken underneath. You can't help those people. And the more you practice that unforgiveness, the more you practice letting go of those issues, the easier it gets, because it's almost like you're just stacking problem on top of problem. You start with the first one, and then you get the confidence to work on the next one. You deal with the unforgiveness from one relationship, then you can tackle the unforgiveness within your parents, or within a friendship, or within a bad business deal that fell through. You deal with the unforgiveness of trust that you had for somebody that betrayed you, then you can learn to trust, and then next time, trust a little bit smarter. You learn how to read when you should probably start setting up those boundaries again, where it's like, okay, this person is starting to break that trust again. I probably shouldn't let them do that. Or I've seen this before, and so I'm going to start setting up these boundaries. If they start crossing those lines, I know to let go of this person. I know to let go of this business deal, because last time I did it like this, it went south. Then there's unforgiving yourself. Sometimes we make mistakes and we put ourselves in situations and don't forgive ourselves for making those mistakes. And so again, we carry that against ourselves. And we only hurt ourselves. Again, we only really hurt ourselves by not letting that go. You made a bad decision in a relationship and you tell yourself, I will always suck at relationships. instead of saying, I'm going to fix that mistake that I made, so that then in the next one, I don't cause that again. Because I didn't want to let go of that, but I understand what happened, and so I'm going to try my best on fixing it. In reality, we are more forgiving than what we think. If you've ever learned to ride a bike, you know that take the training wheels off, you're going to fall off a handful of times. Making those mistakes, it's easy to just be like, it's okay, I'm going to get back on and try again. You forgive yourself for that mistake. It's a really simple and easy mistake that you made. You just know, okay, get back on and try again. But in relationships, it's a lot more painful. When you're dealing with a bigger thing, it's a lot more painful. But it's no different than falling off the bike. It's just, okay, this may have hurt right now, but I have to get up, try again. I have to let go of that pain from that relationship and try again. Fix what I did wrong, try again. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting for a different result. So let's just say that being insane is unforgiveness, just for the sake of understanding the topic. It's not okay to give up on things. It's not okay to give up on what you want. You can, but that probably isn't the healthy choice. The healthy choice is to say, where did I go wrong? And then try again. That still takes an amount of unforgiveness to yourself to try again. Even if it was outside that caused the problem. Even if it was somebody else that made you cause that problem. Again, it's just forgive that person, realize what you did wrong, and then move forward. But don't worry if somebody doesn't want to forgive you. Again, that is their poison they are drinking. And if you want to hold unforgiveness, here's a tricky one. If you want to hold unforgiveness because the other person is holding unforgiveness, you are no better than the other person. You are both drinking different poison, thinking it's going to hurt the other person. And it's easy to do that. I forgive that last relationship. They hurt me, but you know what? They don't want to forgive me, so screw them. You're still carrying something, and it'll show later when you have to deal with a similar situation. I'm going to leave you guys with that. Again, unforgiveness at the end of the day is for you. It's not for the other person. It is for you. Because one, most importantly, God tells us to forgive. The Bible says we cannot be forgiven until we forgive. That once we forgive, we are forgiven. Two, you are only hurting yourself by not forgiving. If it takes time, that's fine. But not forever. Eventually you have to let it go. Eventually you have to move forward. Eventually you have to say, this situation is no longer my life. This situation no longer needs to affect me, so let it go. And then lastly, you're not doing anything to the other person, but you have to think about what the other person is going through to have caused them to feel like the way they treated you was necessary. You have to have empathy to be able to understand that that person is hurting themselves and feel bad for them because they can't figure out how to get over that. And the best way that they've been able to figure it out is by treating others the way that they have been treated. And again, that's not fair for them or for others because they're only doing it to themselves. And so why make it any worse and add on top of that for them?